Queensland, you don't like me and I don't like you. Well, I like you. And also you seem to like me because my shows sell well there. I've got tickets available in other states though. Here's the link. But let's focus on Queensland because you have an election coming up and this is an impassioned plea from a concerned non-citizen of your state. Why are you electing Bruz too? Haven't we made it clear enough that that's not a good idea? I mean, you're electing him as Premier. And he's not even hilariously fat like our Bruz. He's just small. He's really pathetically small. Looks like he can't go on half the rides at Movie World. That's who you think's going to be tough on crime? This is going to be unscripted, barely edited. We've got edited videos. Here's the links to some of them that are Queensland related. I should also enter that. See, this is why I need a script. But I thought that I'd just have a little conversation with you, one-on-one. Like we're equals. And I just wanted to say, I think you're making a really bad decision. A really bad decision. And let's just quickly go through why Queensland is making this decision. Well, it doesn't seem like that there is a particularly good reason. The polling that keeps coming out over and over is this feeling of, I've been in a while. I just want to see what he's like in government. I'm sick of hearing him complaining about the policy. Let's put him at the first part of that 2-minute news clip on Channel 7 as opposed to the, this is a terrible idea. Let's just see what that looks like for a bit. That's the main reason. There's other reasons, but let's go through them. You've got crime. Crime's going down. It has been going down for quite a while. You know why it's been going down? Because Labor has been implementing what the experts have been saying. And as a result, we are seeing headrow with this. I know that it's not good when people's cars get stolen and when there's murders. But do you seriously think that any premier or any governing structure ever can prevent murders and can prevent robberies? All they can do is make the graph go down. That's it. And that's happening here. Here's the big question. Do you think that the LNP are going to deliver in on that promise? Because really what it seems like, what they're saying over and over again, is a couple of slogans of things that don't even seem like they can be legally done. Like that's even murky to begin with. And on top of that, not really much else apart from like inquiries into where the government's going wrong. When, I don't know if anyone knows this about government, but that's all government is. It's just endless inquiries. They've seen the inquiries. They've been in the inquiries. They've been invited to the inquiries. All they do is just go out and say, oh yeah, we'll have more inquiries after this. It really seems to be a lot of their, like, what is their slogans? Like adult crime, adult time. That's not really what the experts are saying is going to reduce crime. Something that is going to reduce crime is free school lunches. Yeah, I know it's not as glamorous as, beheading a 12-year-old publicly, but glamorous. But, it supposedly gets the job done. On top of that, this is just a good poverty reduction measure, generally. This is something that bleeds into the other thing that people think that they're getting rid of the government for, which is this idea that somehow, magically, a Queensland Premier is going to stop the global cost of living crisis. Where, I'm telling you right now, the government that you have has had the best crack at that probably anywhere on earth. You show me a government that has put in better measures to fight this. I've got a friend who's, I feel ashamed to admit this now because they're just going to be like, oh my God, he's part of the problem. But, they were southern staters that moved up to Queensland during COVID. Sorry, guilty as charged. Yep, that's why there's a lot of traffic in your state all of a sudden. Yeah, it's because of my friend's parents. They're part of the problem. But anyway, they can't speak English. Oh yeah, that's going to help even better in Queensland. They're going to like that. So they are constantly going back to him and be like, can you pay my bills? Anyway, he was looking at the bill. The bill was so low that my friend had to ring up his parents and say, are you using electricity? Is your electricity plugged in? You're not just stealing a lamp from someone else's house, are you? Like your house has electricity. Yeah. You know what it was? It's the $1,000 rebate that Queensland is putting through. That's what's doing it. People don't even know that. Like, your energy prices are unbelievably cheap. So cheap in comparison to the rest of the country. You know what else is a big thing? The 50-cent bus fare ticket stuff. Like, that is huge. We've seen the results in this. We're talking massive jumps in people catching public transport. That's great for the planet. That's great for traffic. That's great for your wallet. These are huge cost of living reductions, like transport and power. What else is there after that? Groceries. And federal Labor's doing something about that, but that's another video. All of these policies have been very carefully designed to attack cost of living while not being inflationary. There's been a lot of economic modelling that has been put into this stuff. It's world class, I'm telling you right now. Do Queenslanders even know it? Do they really even know how good they've got it at the moment? Because I don't think they do. Look at the headlines for when school lunches was announced. Look at this. Look, this is from Sky. Apparently, free school lunches is, quote, Communism 101. This was apparently the entire point of Das Kapital, according to Sky. This is what it was all getting at. The grand final plan was to implement what I'm pretty sure Detroit in the US has. Like, I don't really see the USA as being this secret hub of Marxism, despite what MAGA supporters might say about it. You know, like, I don't think that you can really qualify this very mild, quite nice government program as one step away from Stephen Miles being the next Stalin. In fact, not only is it communism, as you haven't thought about when free school lunches are given out to poor kids, some of these kids are criminals. Fact. Got you there. Didn't think about that, did you? You thought this was all lovey-dovey. Thank God the courier's there to give you the harsh truths, to keep people thinking. Look at this. Free lunch for the little criminals. Voters let fly at Miles. Isn't that a great little tactic that the news always uses? Well, we're just reporting what some psycho bum on the street said, you know? I mean, this is amazing. Like, come on. Andrew Bolt is too scared to put his name to that. So they just get some random out there. Yeah, I mean, this is the sentiment on the streets. It's very easy for you to be sitting there in your offices not knowing what the everyman's thinking. I have never seen a policy announcement that when people hear it, there has been universal praise. This is the amazing thing about every single one of Stephen Miles' policies. It goes from transport, it goes from infrastructure, over and over again. You hear people when they say, here's the policy, and they go, yeah, that's great. And then you say, well, are you going to re-elect that guy? No. Why? Because he's been in too long. Why do they think that this is okay? Why do they think that if you just replace Stephen Miles with this short little, Italian pony here, that you are going to have the same government? It's not going to be the same. There's a very, very, very good reason why Christopher Foley is keeping tight-lipped about anything. He hasn't really announced any policies yet. Over and over again, we have a plan, it's all costed. Where is it? We have a plan, it's all costed. He's a robot. He is just not even like a good Skynet level robot, just like a malfunctioning one in The Simpsons going like, oh. He doesn't do anything. He has not done the basics. It's amazing how little that man has had to do in this campaign, because he knows that he's just going to coast in. And he doesn't want Queenslanders to know what his big plan is. But you can take an educated guess. All of these things that Stephen Miles is doing, as the Courier Mail is always pointing out, it's going to cost money. It costs money. At the end of the day, the taxpayer is paying for all of this. I'll get to in a second, yes, someone is paying for it. It's not you, but you will be paying if Christopher Foley's elected. You absolutely will be, because let's just think about this for a second. They're saying basically to every one of these massive policy announcements that Stephen Miles just keeps batting out over and over again, that are always addressed as, because there's very little that you can say that people would hate about paying less for public transport, and also this little tidbit that just seemed to just completely fly under the radar, making publicly owned petrol stations. What a genius policy. He's going to buy up a few petrol stations, make them government run. That is going to reduce the cost of petrol everywhere, because the very few petrol bowsers that do have the monopoly in Queensland are all of a sudden going to have to compete with some real competition. Genius. And again, what is it described as? Every time by the Courier Mail. Desperate vote-grabbing ploy. Well, if you want to look at it through that extremely negative lens, yeah, I guess anything that any politician ever says is a vote-grabbing mechanism. But the whole thing is, yeah, you say, this is what I do if I'm going to get elected. Can I have your vote to get that? That's how democracy works. So basically what they're saying is the democratic project is desperate. Like, this is not an argument to say,
oh my God, I can't believe that a politician is seeking election. Desperate.
What the hell is this? Like, these are the arguments that we have to deal with daily in the press when it comes to Queensland. This is how the public is being informed there. The question is why? And we will get back to that in a second. But I just need to point out, all of these huge cost of living reduction measures that Queensland is enjoying at the moment to keep it the Sunshine State. It's beautiful now. Will it be perfect the next? Will it be if Christopher gets elected? Will it? Because he's saying that he's going to implement pretty much everything. Like, again, he just echoes whatever the Courier Mail says. They were like, this is a desperate ploy. Are you going to have the same policy? Yeah, we'll match it. It's not desperate when he says that, though. That's not desperate at all. If he's doing that, where is he going to get the money from? Here's the big question. Because do you know where Stephen Miles is getting the money from? We've made this abundantly clear in the edited videos, but I need to stress this one more time. I think the major reason that Palaszczuk isn't Premier right now is because her government implemented an increase in coal royalties, aka a coal tax. That's money for your resources, which is what you should be getting at a bare minimum. You live in Queensland, you should enjoy the property of Queensland's bounty. That should be your money. This is how they're paying for all of these cost of living measures. Yeah, I get it when the Courier Mail says these are expensive measures. You can also afford them. You are still in a surplus. This is the other thing that's incredible about the Queensland government. This is one of the best economically managed precincts in the world. In the country, it is the best economically managed precinct. Here's the video for that. On top of having huge job creation, which again is part of this whole thing of them creating all of these programs put in place to keep you employed during the cost of living crisis. This did not just magically appear. Like, this is the result of government programs being put in place. Not only that, you have a surplus. So that means that all of this is being paid for currently. Why is it all being paid for? A lot of this is, and this is something that I just got to say nationally when people always say, oh, the government isn't doing much. Do you remember what people were saying about the first two Palaszczuk terms? Oh, they're doing nothing. They're doing absolutely nothing. They are doing things. It's just boring, monotonous stuff that needs to be repaired once the LNP get in, because every time they just slash and burn all the public departments and then you have to rebuild them from scratch. It is tiresome, laborious, tedious, thankless work that looks completely invisible to the public, but it is needed to get the state moving in the right direction so that you can implement these bigger programs later. That's why Labor governments are kind of like wine. They just keep getting better with age, because the thing is, once government is working, it keeps working better and better. That gets completely eroded every time the LNP is elected. And especially when the LNP is elected, because as we all know, when Campbell Newman was in last, absolutely decimated the public service. And here's the thing. What do you think Christopher Fuller's going to be doing? What do you think he's going to be doing? Because he's basically his only stated policy. Keep in mind, the election is just around the corner, you know? Like, in the grand scheme of a brief history of time, nanoseconds away. And yet, he has only announced, this is pretty much his only main announcement of a policy. I want to cut that coal tax.
I want the mining industry to be free from a government that's constantly looking to find new ways to tax and regulate them.
Okay, Christopher Fuller cuts that coal tax. Where is he going to get the money for the energy rebates? Where is he going to get the money for the 50-cent bus fares? Well, he said that he's not going to be raising taxes on you, okay? Because if you aren't getting money from the coal companies for your resources, that's probably the only other way that you're going to be able to pay for these programs. So that leaves two options. Either he's lying about keeping all of these cost of living measures, or, which is probably what's going to happen, he's going to go in there and be like, oh, actually, there's a huge budget crisis. We're going to have to cut all of them. Sorry, Labor was lying. When it's like, no, we have all of their costings. We have their budget. They're not lying. I'm sorry, you're in the black. I know that this is terrible news for LNP headquarters, but yes, they are better economic managers than you. Yes, they have been able to pull off this miracle. You're not going to be able to. Your only stated policy is to cut the source of all the income that is going to pay for these policies. That's it. He's going to go for the second best option, which again, like, is just going to completely destroy the state. He's going to go for Campbell-Newman style cuts. It's obvious that's what he's going to do. He's going to cut all of the services that you're relying on now. So not only will you not be getting these programs delivered to you effectively because you won't have a proper bureaucracy to give out these programs, so that will just start screwing up all of that. In terms of like infrastructure build, this is another reason why federal Liberal is so bad when they get into office, because it's like, not only are they cutting back on the public service, but then the public service can't implement the policies that they're trying to get implemented. So nothing gets done. Do you understand why there was all these like huge amounts of money when the Liberals were in that were allotted for infrastructure spend and the country just wasn't getting built? This is one of those reasons. It's because there's no public servants to do it. So it just keeps pooling in. I don't know, money fight? What do we do with it? Like, there's nothing to do with it. It just keeps going into that shit. Basically, I just wanted to make this a big reminder of just how bad the LNP is. Like, the Liberals themselves are shocking, but the LNP is its own separate entity. And I've always had the theory that it is because the National Party is the Liberal Party there. They've morphed together. That little tumour is the DNA entity of it now. And as a result, every time they're in, they really take your state backwards. We're talking every single metric you could go from corruption to infrastructure build to jobs, everything goes backwards, massively. And the question is why? Why are we voting for this? Well, you. I would be voting if I could. Obviously, for Christopher Fully. That's right. I'm only saying this because I'm paid. But anyway, I'm not. Shut up. Now, the thing is that I think that the reason you have this idea that the Labor Party needs to go is because there has been a particular shriekish pitch that hasn't ended for the last term of Palaszczuk particularly. Before it was always anti-Palaszczuk. Now it's extremely anti-Palaszczuk. Now it's extremely anti-Miles. It's just anti-Labor endlessly. We've done a story about this before, how you have a bunch of these fake corporate, concerned grassroots groups that the news covers endlessly and being like, look at these concerned 6 fishermen out front of Parliament. Queensland's rising up. Oh, look at these 6 farmers over here that are pissed off that the Queensland government is implementing policy to stop coral reef from dying. Queensland's rising up. They just keep finding these corporate entities that are pretending that they're like, protest groups and filming it to give off this entity that like nothing that the Queensland government has been doing is right. I'm telling you, it all goes back to the one stated policy of the LNP. It's to cut the coal tax. It's exactly the same reason as why federal Labor was taken out under the Gillard government. It is because the mining giants and the fossil fuel lobbies aren't getting the same revenue that they used to. You're getting that revenue instead. And as a result, that government must go. And they don't care what the other government does to your state as long as they get rid of that. That's it. So the reason that he's even stated this publicly is to just make it crystal clear to everyone in the press class, everyone in the lobby class, everybody out in the corporate world that don't worry, the one thing that you want to trade all of that progress in for, I'm going to do that. That's why we know about that. That is, I can guarantee you now, the one promise of Chris Fully's that he's going to pull through on. When it comes to his costing and his plans, first off, he hasn't even announced them, but when it comes to the costing, I don't believe it for a second. I definitely believe he's going to cut the coal tax. That means the cost of living goes out the window. That means all of this environmental protection that Labor's been putting in over the last decade, that's gone. You go back to Brazilian level land clearing. Everything goes backwards. And the real big shame about all of this, why I think if there was ever a government that deserves a final 4th term to, as to quote the Sydney Morning Herald's pitch to get Berejiklian back in, get the job done. The main reason I'm having Stephen Miles stay in for one more term to finish this off, to just make it so even if the LNP get in the next time, you're too far down the garden path. They just have to keep going at that point. You get it? Like, this is why it was so bad federally that Scott Morrison got in for another term, because he was able to implement all of these renewals of all of these coal mines, renewals of all of these coal plants that were going to go out. And then they got commissioned in again, and that kind of determined energy policy for the next decade, right? Like, this is the same, but in reverse in Queensland. What Queensland is going to implement, we've done a huge video on this, one of the greatest, most ambitious energy transition programs in the world, indisputably. Tens of billions of dollars pumped into this whole thing that's going to be creating, first of all, it's going to make you innovators in hydrogen. Not only that, it is going to absolutely decarbonize the energy grid massively. This is a big energy transition program that they're undergoing. This would be big for a country to be doing, let alone a state. That's what they're spending that coal money on. Instead, what Chris Fully wants is, and think about this, money left over to help you throughout the cost of living crisis. What does Chris Fully want to do instead of having a clean, cheap energy grid, which again will just permanently reduce energy prices for you, as well as just being better and more efficient in every way? What does Chris Fully want to replace that with? Nothing. He just wants everything to just remain shit and old and 19th century like it is, and for the coal companies to just cream off all of those profits. And that's what you're really trading in. I'm telling you, this has to be the worst deal I've ever come across in covering politics for a decade now. This is by far the worst deal. Don't be so stupid as to take it. So, what can we do before the election? Well, I would really like you to try and do the classics, right? One thing I think you can do is sign up to the Common Sense Brigade. I think that that's a really good move first off. I think that you should just be getting those messages out to as many people as the boomers on Facebook. And then they craft them in a way that they'll agree with, So that's the first thing that you can be doing. The second thing that you should be doing is just talking to the people that are around you and being like, don't throw this baby out. There's no bathwater to throw out anyway. You're just throwing a baby away. That's it. Don't let it happen. I don't know. I'm just really sad about the election.